So our next storyteller is Tim Magill. Come on up, Tim.
17 veterans die by suicide every day. That's about 6,000 veterans dying every year. 2014, that number was about 22 every day. Back in 2014, I was the executive director of a nonprofit, pretty unusual one. It was an outdoor education center that specialized in trauma recovery. And about a 1,000-acre facility, we did all kinds of outdoor stuff, but one of the things that was most gratifying for me, we had the privilege of hosting a veteran PTSD recovery program. It was a 5-day, 4-night camp that was specifically designed and developed by veterans, for veterans, that combined psychoeducation, kind of classic counseling, but more importantly with equine-assisted psychotherapy, as well as challenge coursework, canoeing, all kinds of different outdoor activities. We were kind of at the forefront of what later became known now as adventure therapy. And there's actually a whole school of thought now in clinical psychology that shows that for some populations, particularly trauma-affected populations, outdoor adventure therapy can have a very powerful effect on trauma recovery and resilience building. So we were running this program. It was a 5-day, 4-night program. And let me tell you about Keith. Keith was a warrior, about 250 pounds, didn't have an ounce of fat on his body. And we're out in the middle of this beautiful 1,000-acre facility in Kentucky and starting this camp. So in drives Keith in his white pickup, big jacked up, big tires, about a mile-long driveway, and crunches into our kind of remote parking lot right next to this big outdoor amphitheater and pavilion that we got started with our programs on. So I'm sitting there at a table when the guys come up to register them, and out steps Keith, and he's got tattoos, and he's got serious mirrored sunglasses, and his eye and his head is on a swivel, and he's just checking out everything, looking for, basically for enemies that nobody else sees while he's walking up to us. And everything about this guy's demeanor says, "Get the fuck away from me." And here I am sitting at the table. Hi. Welcome. My job at that point was what clinical psychologists call offering unconditional positive regard. What does that mean? It's a clinical term. It just means that no matter what that person presents to you, how much you are reacting to them, you have to just have a flat affect. And so that was my job, but I'm here to tell you, you scared the shit out of me. Well, we get him checked in, and he gets all this stuff put down on the outdoor pavilion there while the rest of the guys are showing up and they're putting their gear down. He goes and finds himself the perch on the top of one of the outdoor picnic benches that we have sitting around the perimeter. And so he takes up station and he's scanning the whole time while the rest of the guys get checked in. So when I find a little time, I go saddle up to him and sit down on the top of this table and try to talk to him casually a little bit. But, what brings you here, Keith? Tell me a little bit about yourself while we're waiting for the guys. He continues just to scan, doesn't really have much affect, but he tells me a little bit about how he was deployed, and when he came back, his life started falling apart. He started drinking pretty heavy and started fighting at just about any little impetus would trigger him pretty quick. So his wife and his kids just didn't know him anymore, and his wife was desperate. He had been through the VA, had done all the counseling, had done all the traditional therapy, and his wife was kind of at her wit's end until she found out about this program that we were hosting at this center that I used to run. So she thought it was a pretty good idea at the time for him to enroll, because that was about the only thing she knew to do at that point. She was at her wit's end. He thought that was a stupid idea. And he was unabashed about it, that counseling is for pussies, that he was tough and he could just gut it out and it'll get better. But out of respect and love for his wife, he enrolled, whether or not he thought it was a good idea. So a couple of days into this program, I'm checking in on Keith every once in a while, and just as I feared, he really wasn't participating very much. He was kind of off to the side and wasn't really participating in activities. He wasn't participating or talking much during the sessions. He was always respectful of all the other guys, but just wasn't having it. Day 3. We're out at the challenge course. It's a climbing wall and apparatus. We have all these high ropes challenge course there. And this particular element that we were working on that day, day 3, is on the top of this soft rolling hill. Just beautiful, angelic, picturesque top of this hill that you can see 1,000-acre, all this bluegrass all around it. And on this hill on the top is a 40-foot pole. So picture a telephone pole, literally a telephone pole, 40 feet going up into the air. And on the side of this telephone pole is a bunch of steel staples, is what we call them, handholds, driven into the side so you can climb up, right? It makes a little makeshift ladder. On both sides of this pole are 2 other telephone poles. Each of them are 50 foot tall, and across the top of that is a big steel cable that suspends a pulley. And on that pulley is a big climbing rope, a belay rope, that goes up into that pulley and comes down the other side. This is all made up in apparatus that's called the leap of faith. And the idea is the participant, the warrior, gets put into a big full body harness, and we clip them in with a carabiner, and they climb that pole 40 feet up into the air. And on the top of the pole is a little platform, like yay big, just barely enough that you can haul yourself up there and stand up on this platform. And the idea is you jump off of this platform out into midair, and you're in this harness with a big belay rope, and I'm down on the ground with the belay team and hanging onto this rope. So when you fall, you get caught by this rope, and then we lower you down to the ground. So Keith's getting hooked up, and he's got his harness on, and we're clipping him in with the belay, and our one of the instructors comes up to him and says, okay, here's the deal, Keith, you're going to go up this pole, but you got to think about something before you go up that you want to let go of. When you get to the top of that pole, you're going to let go of whatever that is that's holding you back. And when you jump off, you're leaving that thing behind. And Keith is having none of it. It's like, what the fuck? Really? And I'm pardon my French, but these are the words that are coming out. What did my wife get me into? This is silly. This is so stupid. What am I going to let go of? Some emotional thing that's holding me back. All right. But pretty quick, something just bubbles up from underneath his gut, and he says, all right, fine. I'm going to let go of, I don't know, guilt. And before we have a chance to process what he just said, he starts climbing. And I and the belay team have to go scramble over and grab a hold of that belay rope, because now we got him going up that pole, and we need to have that safety rope on him. But we just barely had enough time to do that. He's about 30 feet in the air now, climbing up, and I'm here to tell you, he was booking. He was moving quick. I think the steel felt good in his hands. He liked climbing. This is not scary for him. He was a warrior. He liked climbing. I think for the first time, he kind of got out of his head for a little bit. But about 30 feet up, he starts shaking, and he holds onto that pole for dear life. And we're all wondering what's going on, because he stopped. All of a sudden, a story comes out while he's 30 feet up in the air holding onto this pole. And he tells the story about how all of a sudden he could see, just his eyes are shut, you could see that he's re-envisioning what's going on in his head when he was deployed. And he was driving a Humvee, an armored vehicle. And they were going through a village, and all of a sudden they start taking contact. Headphones on, he's got these earmuff headphones. Commander comes up over his headphones. Contact left, contact right, Floor it, go, go, go. Keith mashes that accelerator down, and they go fishtailing through this village. They finally get just about out of the village, and they come to the last turn, and they make that last turn, fishtailing around, and he feels that Humvee bump a little bit, but they get the rest of the way out of the village. And then he realizes that little bump was him running over a 10-year-old boy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, just happened to be walking across the street in his village in the middle of a firefight. Did I mention Keith had a 10-year-old boy at home? This story came out for the first time. It had been suppressed in his gut for so long. I don't even know if Keith remembered. He certainly didn't talk about it with his wife. He didn't talk about it with the VA counselor. It only came out up on that pole 30 feet in the air, and now he's stopped shaking. And we're quiet down on the ground. We're still holding on to that belay rope. One of our instructors hollers up to him and says, okay, you let go of that shit right now. That's what you're going to let go of when you get on the top of that pole. Now get up that pole, soldier. And sure enough, he took a deep breath, made it the last 10 feet, shimmies his way up on top of that little platform. And I swear, we're looking up about 40 feet up in the air, and you could see him grow another foot taller as he sticks his arms out in the air. Just takes a little bit of a spring in the step and launches off of that pole with a big war cry. Ah! Falls about 5-10 feet. We catch him on the belay rope, and that was quite a jolt on that belay rope. And now we've got Keith's life literally and physically in our hands as we lower him down to the arms of all the other warriors. That was a day that Keith got lowered into these F-bomb dropping 250-pound warriors' arms, and they became brothers that day. That was the day that Keith began to heal. So, go back to Keith's wife. She thought it was a pretty good idea at the time for him to enroll. I think it was. Thank you.
Tim's graced the platform a couple of times before and has really done some amazing work in his life. That wasn't the only thing that he's done to help others, and he has an amazing background in history, and just the life most of us want to lead, I think. And yeah, thank you is a word. So when he told me, when we were talking, or actually emailing, he told me that when he was a kid, he had some auspicious neighbors. The Grateful Dead band lived next door to him, which is interesting and probably another story, but his siblings loved the idea, but most of the neighborhood didn't. Also, by proclamation of the governor of Kentucky, Tim was honored to receive the title of Kentucky Colonel and to be welcomed into the historic and honorable order of Kentucky Colonels, and that is a real thing. So, and I thank you all for coming.